As a professor of organic chemistry, interest is connecting students with the course content, which is both rigorous and rapid in its delivery. The way I work my classroom is I generate a series of PowerPoint slides that are then converted by a software package into what it amounts to a electronic chalkboard. And I've discovered over the years that, in fact, the less information I have on those slides before lecture, the better the students are able to engage with the content. And so this electronic chalkboard allows me to generate my lectures as they happen. Students in the classroom have tablet PCs, and they receive these slides as I release them to them during my lecture session, and they can see what I'm doing on their screen as well as on one of two projectors at the front of the classroom. What I want to describe now is basically how a little learning moment takes place in my class. So in this slide, I show you the aldol reaction, and in the classroom I've drawn out each of these pen strokes to show, as you can see, figures and arrows going everywhere, and it looks quite complicated. The software allows the student to capture this, save it to their server, and then access it in their dorm rooms later or elsewhere later on a computer, and they can replay each individual pen stroke if they wish, as well as any audio content that I've generated in my lecture as well. So I present this lecture material, this reaction to the students, and it gets projected on projector 1. And then when I bring up projector slide 2, it shows up on projector 1, and the first slide slides over to projector 2, and so they can see the worked example on one screen. And here's a problem that I've given to students. And you notice that it has no answer. And so this is an opportunity for me to tell students, all right, let's do this problem. And students who have tablets in the class, which is roughly 50%, are encouraged to work their problem out on their tablet using their stylus. And if they don't have a tablet, they can work on pieces of paper or in their notebooks. And at this time, I usually wander around the classroom and answer questions that they might have, help them solve the problem if they want help, and just kind of keep an eye on what people are thinking. After some period of time, I can then ask students to submit their panels to me, and I can incorporate those panels either individually or collectively as part of my lecture to review in front of the class. And this is done anonymously, of course. Or I can save those panels to a separate file and then grade them and return them to the student that they can view later in their dorm room. And so here is a submitted panel that I captured from that particular lesson, and you can see that the student has worked out the problem. And if we can see that they have identified the product of this reaction quite successfully. What I like about this software, what I like about this learning environment is that not only do I get a chance to see students learning in real time or engaging in the content in real time, but it also gives me an idea of whether or not they understand process as well as product. One of the things that we focus on in chemistry is not necessarily memorizing the 400 or 600 reactions that we might learn in a semester, but learning how these molecules are engaged in each other and how they react with each other. Because if you learn how things work, then even if the names of the reagents or the structure of the reagents change, knowing how means you'll always be able to predict the correct product. The classroom layout is shown here. As you can see, the front of the classroom has two screens that I'm showing you here in red. There's a lecture podium that sits over about here that I can stand behind. And there's also a technology cabinet over here. This podium has a large monitor located here. And my tablet sits in a docking station at the front. When my education faculty are observing me, they typically sit in opposite corners. So Guy usually sits over here, and Kyle sits either in the front, because no student wants to sit in the front, or sometimes he sits in the back as well, and so he can look at and observe what students are doing. I make free use of all of the available space in the room. I tend to not want to stand behind the podium because I find it doesn't really help engage students in their learning at all. If I'm just stuck behind there. The sage on the stage thing is what I started out doing when I was a younger professor, and I found it to be less effective as I grow older. Classroom observations are done in a very systematic way. Kyle and Guy are using the ISTE classroom observation tool with some modifications. As you can see here, obviously there's basic information, and since we're only doing this in one classroom, this is sort of redundant. But below is the room description and the student characteristics. This is one of Kyle's forms. You can see he's outlined the classroom as you see here. Every X is a student. Every circled X is in fact a student with a tablet. As you can see, we've got pretty good coverage here distributed around the room. Kyle and a visiting professor from Japan that day were sitting in the back, and you can see Guy is over here. And what they're looking at is how the students are working. Are they working in small groups? Are they working in pairs? How is it that they're working? They're also looking at what I'm doing. Am I being the sage on the stage guy? Am I trying to be interactive? Am I modeling something, or am I helping them solve problems? And then they're also subdividing my classroom time into various learning activities. The other thing that they're looking at is how the students are using the tablet. So we have, in this particular notation, it looks like Devin has switched her tablet from a laptop sort of style into a tablet style, so taking notes on the tablet instead of using it as a laptop. And so these sorts of notes are then collected and analyzed. This is a blind study, which means that I'm not involved in any of the assessment. I'm just the guy in the front of the classroom and in the classroom working on learning and teaching.